The following is an encore presentation of a pre-recorded program. Chats and evaluations were only available during the live presentation. To join one of CJE Senior Life's many live presentations, please visit cje.net/events, call 773-508-1000, or follow us on your favorite social media platform.
All right, well, welcome everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to our bi-monthly Insights on Aging program. My name is Lisa Andrews, and I'm the Clinical Supervisor of Counseling Services here at CJE, and we are the sponsors of this community education program. We want to be sure that everyone's aware that we're offering counseling services via telehealth with a video connection, as well as in person in our Rogers Park and Deerfield offices. We provide individual, family, and group therapy, as well as a variety of support groups and some psychotherapy groups, which I'll give more information about at the end of our presentation today. If you want more information on these services and how to access them, or if you want to contact me directly, we'll be providing this during the program. So it's my pleasure to welcome you to this Insights on Aging program, Resilience and its Importance to Mental Health and Aging. If there are any professionals in the audience today, I want to let you know right at the start that this program does not offer CEUs. These community education programs are part of an effort by CJE and counseling services to highlight important aging and mental health issues. Our goal is to provide essential information to the individuals and families that we serve. So please be aware that all Insights on Aging programs are recorded and available on our website. If you provided an email when you registered for the program, you'll be sent a follow-up email with the link to this recording on our webpage, as well as any handouts or documents shared today. I'm going to be using a PowerPoint, so rest assured you'll get a copy of that. It does take several weeks for the recording to be prepared and published online, but the email with the links will be sent today. So since the program is being recorded and will be shared publicly, there are higher privacy features in place and your live participation will be anonymous. You will not be able to see other participants, and when you use the Q&A feature, your name won't be shared. We do encourage you to participate and use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen to ask any questions. But the chat feature, which you may be more familiar with, is disabled. Please be aware that we have live transcription and closed captioning available. In order to use these features, you will need to turn this feature on manually on your own device. You can do this by selecting the CC/live transcript icon at the bottom of your screen. You can select either subtitles or full transcript views, and you can adjust the font size to your personal needs. We will be monitoring the Q&A and can address an issue if an urgent issue arises that's critical that we address sooner than later. Otherwise, we'll take questions at the end of the program. So, on to today's program. Today, we're going to talk about resilience and its importance to mental health and aging. So again, please be assured that a copy of the presentation slides will be emailed to everyone who registered for today's program. As well, a program evaluation will pop up as you are leaving the presentation. So please do take a minute or two to give us feedback on the presentation today, as well as any ideas for future topics. All right. So now I'm going to share my screen and proceed with the reason that you're all here today to talk about resilience and its importance to mental health and aging. So just a little bit of an agenda today. In this program, we're going to explore the concept of resilience. I hope to offer some ideas to help increase resilience, help us tolerate stress better, regulate our emotions, and that can help make the many challenges of aging more tolerable. The ability to age gracefully and to be able to tolerate experiences of hardship and adversity are goals that most of us embrace. But how do we accomplish that goal? What makes some of us more resilient than others? Can we really learn to adapt to adversity? So that's what we're going to be going over today. So we'll start with the definition. We'll talk about the connection between resilience and aging, some ideas of like how can we improve resilience, some tips for seeking professional support, and some resources. And then we'll have time for questions. Right. So what do we mean when we say resilience? The American Psychological Association defines resilience as the process and outcome of successfully adapting to difficult or challenging life experiences, especially through mental, emotional, and behavioral flexibility and adjustment to external and internal demands. Quite a mouthful. This is an updated definition from 2014. It was previously different. So even though it's a bit to wrap our heads around, the APA's definition is really describing a process, not a stable personality trait. And that suggests that people have the capacity to build and demonstrate resilience in an ongoing way. So the debate surrounding resilience as a process versus a trait persists as a topic of research, but really the most common perspective, the most widely adopted perspective now, emphasizes that it's a process that can be developed. So, in other words, resilience is the ability to cope with and bounce back from stress and adversity, and hopefully even grow through the experience. It's sometimes referred to as thriving and not just surviving. It's an active process. I also want to say, as a disclaimer, I've got to point out that we're not all created equally. Our life experiences are not the same. There are many factors that can influence our resilience. These may be genetics, character related, other personal issues, societal factors, cultural influences, race, and social class. We need to consider the impact of these and other variables on how resilient we may be today and can expect to become tomorrow. How does one person survive the experience of a concentration camp during the Holocaust and live to be a grounded, resilient older adult, while another person has the same experiences but ends up with impairments that do not allow them to function well in society? We only have an hour today to look at this concept of resilience, so I'm not able to go into all of these nuanced factors. It's a very complicated topic, and I'm just going to do a very cursory overview and touch on some ideas that might benefit us as we try to cope with adverse experiences in our lives. So we're not doing a deep dive, but just know it's more complicated than this. But I'm going to give you some of the most recent research that's come out about resilience. So again, ultimately, scientists say it is important to think of resilience as an emotional muscle that can be strengthened at any time. And there was an article written by Tamara Parker Pope in 2017 in the New York Times. And she actually says that research shows that older adults have an advantage over the young because of their perspective gained from life experiences and concerns for future generations, sorry. So how is this connected to aging? As the previous slide started to hint at, the two are actually quite well connected. Traditionally, in many Western cultures, older age has been viewed negatively as a time of frailty, disability, declining function, greater physical and mental limitations. However, many older adults actually experience high well-being and quality of life, lower stress, recovery from adversities, and consider themselves to be aging successfully despite the onset of chronic conditions. In fact, some studies show that adults age 85 plus appear to have the same capacity for resilience as those who are younger, suggesting that resilience may also support longevity, and that resilience is not just a use it or lose it skill. You can always strengthen that muscle. That's something that comes across in a lot of the research, is that thinking about it as a muscle that we can strengthen at any time. My slides aren't really, there we go. Okay. So I found an article from 2016 that summarizes a lot of the different research on resilience and aging. And studies that focus on the potential health outcomes of resilience actually suggest that high resilience later in life can help with improved quality of life, improved mental health, improved perception that you're successfully aging, improved resistance to stress, lower rates of depression, increased longevity, even things like increased rates of physical independence and faster cardiovascular recovery. And this tells us what we already know a lot of, that mental and physical health, our emotional well-being and our physical well-being, our bodies and minds are connected. But I just thought it was interesting that it does have some impact in later life as well. So just as resilience affects different people based on many different factors, it also may show up differently in our lives. There are different types of resilience. So one type of resilience is cognitive, and that really has to do with how events are interpreted and how our daily stressors and life circumstances are negotiated. Another type of resilience can come out in our behavior. Those are habits of persistence and endurance in the face of obstacles and failure. There's also motivational resilience, where you have a clear sense of life purpose and commitment. There's an existential or spiritual domain of resilience, where we think about our larger purpose and the meaning of life. There's relational types of resilience that has to do with our sense of social connectedness, our engagement, altruism, and emotional resilience, that ability to tolerate negative emotions and rejection, and to maintain emotional confidence and hopefulness. So you'll notice a connection between these different types of resilience and some of the tips and strategies that we'll talk about for increasing resilience. So now we're going to move on to what are some of the ways that we can do this. We've talked about how it's so great, all the benefits that it can have, especially in later life. How do we do that? If it's a muscle that we can strengthen, and research shows there are many positive effects of increasing resilience in aging, how do we do that? There's been less research in this area, but here are some ideas based on what we know about studying resilience at all ages. The first, and these are in no particular order, but the first one we'll talk about today is getting connected. Building strong, positive relationships can provide needed support, guidance, and acceptance in good and bad times. So this is easier said than done, get connected. But research shows that building strong, positive relationships can provide needed guidance and support in both good and bad times. We've certainly had to get more creative about how to do this over the past 3 years since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Some ideas for ways to put this into action is by volunteering, joining a faith or spiritual community, a senior center, joining a group based on your interests or hobbies. No matter how it happens, being in community boosts our resilience. Again, I want to emphasize, easier said than done, but it is shown to be a thing that we can do, part of exercising that muscle to increase our resilience. The next one is to shift your thinking. As difficult as it can be, adopting a more positive attitude can increase our resilience. We can do this by challenging ourselves to reframe the situation, or like the saying says, find a silver lining in the cloud. Why a positive attitude? Optimism is closely related to resilience. We can consciously push ourselves to look at that glass as half full rather than half empty. If you are naturally a pessimist, it can be hard at first. So think about imagining the glass as 1/4 full, or even with just a few drops in it. Then we build bigger. Then you can imagine it half full, or maybe 3/4 full. Start small and build up. We need to challenge ourselves to look for that silver lining and reframe a situation from a negative to a positive. Again, easier said than done, but something we can practice. And with practice, we can learn to challenge our initial thoughts and reactions and replace those thoughts with alternatives. One way to think about this is to reflect on if there are any small things that we learned or gained from the pandemic. We can learn to reframe and see crisis as an opportunity for growth and learning, a time to alter the course and steer in a new direction. Can we start to think things like, what am I meant to learn here? rather than I just can't make this work. And resilience in this way is actually good mental health. It can increase our ability to handle almost any situation, including poor physical health, all kinds of losses experienced as we age, and the pandemic. We've kind of proven that to ourselves. We've gotten through it. I'm gonna take a sip of water 1 second. So another thing that we can do along the same lines is to make daily life meaningful. We can further develop resilience by intentionally finding meaning and purpose in life. Doing something that gives us a sense of purpose and accomplishment every day, and setting clear, achievable goals to help us look towards the future with meaning. So, if you're involved in an activity that gives your life more meaning, it will impact your optimism and how you look to the future. We can do this through paid or unpaid work, volunteering, giving to others, joining clubs and activities, knitting, crocheting, writing in a journal, writing letters and sending cards, um, things that really connect you with the things that you find meaningful in life. It's an important thing to avoid boredom and complacency, to forget the saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Maybe your goal is to learn something new every day. And look at us on Zoom. How many people were on this platform before the pandemic? I certainly wasn't. And now look at us now. We're old pros, or at least more comfortable than we were 3 years ago. And this idea of creating meaning, making daily life more meaningful, can take so many different forms. One of the things I like to think about is creating daily rituals that you can look forward to and savor. For me, it is the way that I make coffee every morning. I buy the whole beans and grind them myself and take a lot of time. That's a ritual that makes the morning I feel more grounded and connected. It doesn't have to be something huge, a huge goal or purpose every day. So these can be small or large goals, but it's most important to connect with your core values and work towards the things that help you look forward to each day with meaning. And then continuing on that same theme, challenging ourselves, increasing our self-reliance, our flexibility and adaptability, challenging our problem-solving skills and finding ways to face our fears. This is all about increasing our mental and cognitive resilience. When you think through that chart that we looked at earlier, challenging ourselves to do more, to accomplish more, to learn something new. Focus and learn from what you do accomplish, not your failures. It's okay to look at others and see what you can learn from them, to be inspired, but really try to learn from yourself. Know that you have mastery and you can discover your internal wisdom, your instincts, your reactions. We need to increase self-reliance, flexibility, adaptability, challenge ourselves, challenge our problem-solving skills. So things like word puzzles, crosswords, Sudoku, solving those mysteries. By facing our fears, we can become more resilient, feel more confident, and be more self-reliant. Don't imagine that you can avoid stress. Don't even try to do that. That creates more stress. We can increase our tolerance for stress by allowing ourselves to just experience it. Like any other muscle or exercise, we improve with experience and repetition. Practice makes perfect. It's like that with resilience, with facing our fears. Not going to get it perfectly right the first time. Allow yourself breaks and do lots of self-care, but don't be avoidant of facing stressful situations. Try to do that reframe that I mentioned earlier. This can be a really good workout. What am I going to learn from this? How am I going to get through this? We can actually build resilience by intentionally putting ourselves in challenging situations. We should always try to go outside of our comfort zone. It's okay to be a little afraid. There's actually a biological basis to becoming more tolerant of stress hormones, reacting less to them by experiencing them more. So thinking of this as mastering your stress reactions. Stress is going to happen. It's a part of life. Bad things happen. But when we get comfortable with that kind of stress, get comfortable with the discomfort, we can increase that resilience muscle. So one example of this is perhaps giving a talk about resilience when public speaking makes you a little nervous. So don't be afraid to try. It's really about the effort, about challenging yourself, um, and not being afraid to fail. Another way to increase resilience, and this is connected to the first thing we talked about getting connected, but also supporting others. Resilience studies show that people are more resilient when they have strong support networks of friends and family to help them cope with the crisis. Sure, that makes sense. But you can get an even bigger resilience boost by giving support to others. What are the potential benefits of supporting others when we're going through a tough time? It helps us with recovery from stress, gives meaning and value to our day, and can really distract us from our own problems, kind of take us out of ourselves. And to notice that all of these things are on similar themes, being connected, and this takes it a little further, connecting with others by supporting them. We can find distraction and meaning by offering support to others, both those with whom we have a strong attachment, people that you're close to, and those who we don't really know. We can do this very informally too. Is there somebody who you think of that's really isolated and alone who can benefit from a daily check-in? Can you make a date to call that person in need, maybe once a week? Consider the benefit of putting yourself out there to help others. Can we be a friendly caller as a volunteer job? If there's not somebody that comes to mind that you want to reach out to, can you get connected to a friendly caller program? Can you become a mentor for kids? Can you harness some of those skills that you have in support of others? Is there somebody that you've been meaning to check in on, but haven't gotten around to it? Now you're maybe feeling a little guilty, a little bit like, I don't know, it's been so long. Make that call, put yourself out there in support of others. You'll have a little bit of interaction with some of that fear and some of those stress hormones, but you're also gaining this benefit of strengthening that resilience muscle. I see this all the time in the support groups that I run. People feel better when they feel helpful to others and can use their own experiences to connect and support others going through similar trials. This is the entire basis for bereavement support groups. Getting to know other people, sharing your experiences as a way to benefit and connect with others. And towards the end of the presentation, we're going to talk about some ongoing support groups at CJE that may give you the opportunity to do that, but there are tons of support groups. And this is a more structured way, a more formal way of giving support to others while increasing your own resilience. Another way to increase our resilience is to not personalize it. We tend to blame ourselves for life setbacks and to ruminate about the what ifs and the should haves. Notice when this happens and practice some self-compassion. How would you treat a friend in the same situation? In the moment, a difficult situation may feel as if it will never end, but we all know that the only constant is change. The tides will shift and the sun will come out tomorrow. It was one of the things that I really held on to at the very beginning of the pandemic. I remember talking to my clients and feeling this way myself is we don't know what's coming next, but the sun will come out tomorrow. The sun always comes out tomorrow. And so having that idea of not personalizing it, things will change. Remind yourself that even if you made a mistake, many different factors likely contributed to that situation, and give yourself compassion and shift your focus to the next steps. Even if you did something wrong, you took the wrong turn, you know what happened, you are not the only factor. It's not just you. And so this idea of increasing our self-compassion. I mean, if you're interested in this idea of self-compassion, which kind of ties into mindfulness, there's an Insights on Aging presentation in January where myself and another therapist on our CJE team, Kate Maley, delve more deeply into self-compassion and mindfulness techniques. So check that out if this interests you. There's a deeper dive there, more resources and information. Another thing is in increasing that resilience muscle is to learn from experience. How have you coped with hardships of the past? Can you harness the skills and strategies that helped you through difficult times that you've gone through before? This is where our experiences come into play, and where older adults have a big advantage over younger people. I talk about this all the time in my work with clients. You've been through something like this before. What did you do when things got tough? What do you think helped? What was not so helpful in the past? Using your wisdom and your experience to guide your future behavior. You may even do something like writing about past experiences in a journal to help you identify what was positive and what was negative and how you coped with that. So really like honing in on some exercises, learning from your experience, either informally or by having yourself really delve into it to explore. And again, this is where some of the things about resilience, like there's a lot of focus on resilience in younger kids, but this is where I think older adults really excel. You've got the experience, you've been through something before. The next thing is remain hopeful. So you can't change the past, but you can always look towards the future. I got into this a little bit ago. The sun will come out tomorrow. Accepting and anticipating change makes it easier to adapt and to view challenges with less anxiety. Another thing is we can use humor to cope, to provide levity, to provide that spark of hope. However, it comes out to you, remaining hopeful is important. Right. And then I can't talk about hope without using my favorite quote about hope, or a piece of a poem from Emily Dickinson. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. Right. So now we're going to shift gears a little bit and talk about what happens when we are seeking, when we feel like we need to reach out for more help. We've tried to strengthen that muscle, or we feel like we can't do it alone. Getting help when you need it is crucial in building your resilience. You don't have to go it alone. For many, using your own resources and strategies may be enough for building resilience, but at times an individual may get stuck or have difficulty making progress on the road to resilience. If you're feeling stuck and not sure where to turn, a licensed mental health professional can work with you to help build those coping skills, exercise that resilience muscle, and navigate a strategy for moving forward. So, what are some of the signs that you might want to seek professional support? Not limited to this, of course, but these are some of the signs. If you're feeling unable to function as well as you'd like, if you've had changes in your mood, sleeping, and or eating lasting 2 weeks or longer, you're struggling to take care of those activities of daily living, whether it's like hygiene stuff, showering, eating, or social stuff, you're not feeling like you want to do the things you normally like to do, if you're finding it hard to get along with others, and if you simply want to make a change, but you're not sure where to start. The important thing to remember is that you don't have to be alone on this journey. And in honor of May as National Mental Health Month and yesterday as National Older Adult Mental Health Day, I'm going to shift us to talking more about what the process of seeking support might look like and some options and resources that CJE can provide. So the first is counseling. It's kind of my bias. I'm a therapist and a supervisor here in our counseling department. Let's talk a little bit about what counseling is, also called psychotherapy or just therapy for short, and it can be provided by a clinical social worker like myself, a professional counselor, a psychologist. CJE Senior Life, we offer counseling services provided by licensed clinical social workers. Counseling psychotherapy services are covered by Medicare and other insurance. And for CJE, we see clients via telehealth. We've been seeing clients throughout the pandemic, primarily on telehealth. And we also see clients in person at our office in West Rogers Park in Deerfield. We do have some limited home visits to limited geographic areas if necessary. So let's say you've never been to therapy before. What is it like? A lot of people have kind of questions or apprehensions, or you see a lot of depictions on TV, and I will say, not very realistic, the portrayal of therapy in popular media and in pop culture. So seeing a counselor or a therapist is a unique relationship. It's different than talking to friends or family. There won't be any judgment, and the counselor generally won't give advice. Their role is to really listen and help you seek your own path. I always tell clients that my job is to listen deeply and understand what you're going through. And then we collaborate together on how we're going to get through this, what next steps to take. It's not that I have any magical solutions, but I'm there to listen and understand with you so that we come up with ideas and strategies together. Bringing out your own inner wisdom, your knowledge, your skills. You're the expert on your life, and your therapist should pair with you and collaborate with you on what to do next. So, therapists have many different styles and approaches. Some of them may want to understand some of the patterns of coping you've used in the past, and this can be really helpful, especially with things like grief or loss or traumas. They may want to help understand how losses and challenges in the past may be reawakened by losses and challenges you're experiencing now. There may be connections. This makes sense that you're feeling this way, given what you went through before. And now what do we do? And some therapists may even give you homework to practice new ways of thinking or coping or learning new skills. Some people really want that in a therapist, and some people don't want that. And it's important to kind of think through what kind of therapy, what kind of strategies would be most helpful to you. And so some people are just not into traditional talk therapy, which we understand. So in addition to kind of the traditional talk therapy that you think of, CJE also offers time-limited counseling intervention called PEARLS. And PEARLS stands for the Program to Encourage Active and Rewarding Lives. So this is a program that can work for anyone experiencing symptoms of depression, but can be especially helpful for those who don't see other types of mental health treatment as a good fit for them. It's specifically for people 60 and older who are experiencing depression symptoms or have lost an interest in doing things. PEARLS is designed to reduce those symptoms and improve quality of life specifically for older adults. So the program consists of 8 counseling sessions that focus on the following goals. So it's primarily about problem solving. It's a problem solving counseling technique. And you'll also work on becoming more socially and physically active and scheduling enjoyable activities. So in a PEARLS session with a therapist, you'll develop a problem list and you'll learn some problem solving skills to tackle one problem each week. And we know you're not going to resolve everything, but the idea is to really break down a problem into achievable steps and to work together on a plan to move forward. You'll also learn to enhance positive coping skills by attempting one pleasurable activity, one physical activity, and one social activity each week. And you and the PEARLS counselor will come up together with you'll look through big lists that have lots of ideas. You don't have to come up with it alone. That's this idea. You don't have to go it alone. You can strengthen these issues about problem solving and your reactions to stress by working with someone. And University of Washington, which helped develop PEARLS, they did a study that determined that PEARLS participants had a 50% or higher reduction in symptoms of depression, and 36% of participants showed complete remission. And the participants' quality of life, both physical and emotional, also improved. So the program consists of 8 sessions plus follow-up calls that take place over the course of like 18 or 19 weeks. So you start out meeting weekly with your PEARLS counselor, and then it levels off to less frequently, and then some follow-up calls. So again, if you're feeling like traditional talk therapy that's more open-ended is not a good fit for you, we understand. And we have girls as kind of an alternative to that, as a way to really hone in on problem solving skills, which can really help boost resilience in all of the ways that we've just talked about. Another thing that you can get involved in that I talked about earlier are different support groups. So what I really encourage you to do is go to our website, cje.net/events, or call our main phone number, because there are more support groups than this, but I'm gonna focus in on a couple of, well, 4 of them. So we have a support group called Aging Together. It meets virtually twice a month, and it is for older adults who are solo agers, those who are aging without friends, without family and friends, to get together and talk about um, experiences with aging alone and to forge new connections. We also have bereavement support groups. It's called Living Life Through Loss. I run the virtual bereavement support group, and a colleague of mine runs different cycles of an in-person group. And so that's a way to, that's open to anyone who's experienced a loss. It's not limited to a specific type of loss, but loss of a family member or a friend, where people connect and with each other around how they're grieving, ask questions, get ideas, and really it's a warm and comfortable place to express what it's like to live through loss. We also have a group called Making Connections, which is going to be starting virtually in June. And this is through our Linkages program. And this is for older adults who have family members with disabilities. So a way to talk with other families who are going through the same issues of aging with a family member who has a disability. And we also have a monthly, now it's twice monthly actually, family caregiver support group. This is held virtually, and this is for older adults who are providing care for someone with dementia. Another place to connect with people who are going through similar things. And it hits on those resilience building skills of connection with others, with helping others, potentially with reframing things, with using your own wisdom and experience to help you get through the difficult times that are happening now. So I highly encourage, if you feel compelled, I always say support groups are not for everyone, but if it's something that calls to you, I do say give it a try. And all of our CJE support groups are moderated by social workers or other professionals throughout the agency. And we have some upcoming CJE therapy groups. Now, participation in these groups, so I will say I left this out. All of our support groups are free of charge. So they require pre-screening. So you'll talk with the facilitator of the group to see if it's a good fit for you. But we don't use insurance, and there's no fee to be in a support group at CJE. Our therapy groups, however, require advanced screening and evaluation to be billable to Medicare and other insurance. And these are time limited groups. So we have 2 of them coming up in the summer, and I believe we're running another course of them in the fall. So if the timing doesn't work out for you and you're interested, know that we'll be offering them again. So the first one is called Coping with the Challenges of Aging. And this will be held in person at our offices in West Rogers Park. So this is a CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy group, that will offer tools to effectively deal with the challenges of aging. You'll learn lots of skills, lots of the things that we've talked about in terms of building resilience and coping with challenges. It's going to be on Mondays from 1 to 2 p.m. at our offices in West Rogers Park, starting July 17th and going through mid-September. We've offered this in the past, and we've done it virtually, and we're now returning to offering this group in person. The other group that will be coming up is something new that we're offering, a therapy group to help people who are dealing with chronic pain. That's called Live Better with Chronic Pain. This will be held virtually on Zoom. So in this group, participants will learn strategies to interrupt the cycle of pain and draw from cognitive behavioral therapy techniques and chronic pain reprocessing techniques. This group will happen virtually, like I said, on Tuesdays, starting July 11th, going through the end of August, from 3 to 4:15 p.m. on Zoom. We are working on the promotional materials. I'm sure if you're on our email list, you will get emails about this when we officially start the screening process. But know if you're interested, you can call our main CJE line or keep an eye on our website for when these groups start up. But those are the official start dates. Don't hesitate to reach out if you are interested. And finally, I also want to mention that we have an intake team. So if you've gotten a lot of information today, we've gone through it rather quickly, you're not sure where to start, we have an intake team of trained social workers who can answer questions and support callers with resources both within CJE and externally. And they can connect you to counseling services, including Pearls and the therapy or support groups. They're really trained to listen, to know all of CJE's programs, so you don't have to navigate it alone, and help you get connected where you need to get connected. They can start the conversation and get some direction on the next steps to take. And if it's not something we offer, we do our best to connect you with resources externally as well. And so that number is our main CJE number, 773-508-1000. I won't delve too deeply into all of the details of this, but it is Mental Health Month. And we know that sometimes waiting to get started with a counselor, if you need help right now, what are some of the resources that we talk about? So again, that CJE intake line, we're open 8:30 to 5 Monday through Fridays, but what if you need something sooner? Of course, if you are feeling like you can't keep yourself safe, if you are in an emotional crisis or feeling suicidal, we encourage you to call 911 and go to your nearest emergency room. But you can also call the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, which is now 988, and trained counselors are available 24 hours a day. The state of Illinois also has a warm line for those who are dealing with mental health needs or need support. The numbers listed here, they're open Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., except for holidays. And I also want to give some time to talking about the friendship line, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year for crisis intervention. The warm line services are only available from 7 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. Pacific time. And this is a crisis support line that is just for older adults, so just for people 60 plus. And if you feel like you want to be physically in a place and get some support, there is this movement called the Living Room Program, and Illinois has actually expanded this and given more funding to it. But there are two that are kind of nearby in our area of where our offices are that we point people to. So the Living Room at Turning Point, the numbers are here, and there's also a 24-hour access to a crisis worker. But the living room is open from noon to 8 p.m., 7 days a week, even on holidays. And the living room idea is that it's an alternative to the emergency room for psychiatric emergencies. So the living room at Turning Point is in Skokie. And there's also a living room program at the Jocelyn Center in Northfield. They have differing hours, but it's really a way to be in a calm atmosphere, connect with peer counselors, get the support you need as an alternative to going to the emergency room. And so for these programs, always give a call before you go, but just know that these resources are available to you, regardless of where you live. And in case you want to do a deeper delve on resilience, full disclosure, I've not read all of these books, but for further reading, books like Option B by Sheryl Sandberg, The Myth of Closure by Dr. Pauline Boss, 30 Lessons for Living, Tried and True Advice from the Wisest Americans, another good book about resilience, The Resilience Factor, and Rising Strong by Brene Brown. These are all other things, and there's lots of other books, but these were the ones that I found that seemed to speak most to what we've been talking about today. So, and we're right on time. So that is 45 minutes. So I am happy to open up for questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Well, before we do that, know that there are sources that I pulled from today, and just know if you want to reach me, you can call our main number, or you can send me an email, lisa.andrews@cje.net, and just know that this will all be emailed to you afterwards. So I will stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I'm Sharon Dornberg-Lee, the Clinical Director of Community Services at CJE. And I just popped on both to help Lisa with the Q&A. There were a few things that I answered live as we were going, and a couple of questions in the chat. I'm sorry, in the Q&A. I just wanted to say, first of all, the beautiful job, Lisa, but also I found it so interesting to learn and to hear about resilience as something that we can develop, something that we can learn. I think we often think, or have, I've been led to believe that resilience is something innate, as you mentioned, for all of those social determinants of health that can be a factor that can play into whether or not we have resilience or how much resilience we have. To think about it, I found it so helpful to reframe it and think about it as something we can learn, something we can practice, and kind of a muscle we can develop, and not an inborn trait in the way that I think we traditionally think about resilience. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, it's a big shift. It's a big shift. And it's a big mind shift, I think, to know that it, like when I first gave a talk about resilience in 2018, and I was gathering my notes and came across all of this research that really contradicted how I'd been traditionally taught to think about being a resilient person. Yeah.
Wonderful. Would you like me to read the questions from the Q&A?
Sure, yeah,
Okay.
that would be great. Thank you.
So we have two, and again, I think we'll probably have maybe time for more if anybody wants to add there. So the first question from Bill was how to avoid ruminating about the what ifs and should haves. It's a constant movie that plays in my head. And thank you for that question, because I think that's so common for so many of us.
Well, I think that using some of those cognitive behavioral skills come into play there. And I think it's actually really helpful to identify it as a movie that's playing through your head, because then you can remember that you have the remote. So you can turn down the volume. You can find ways to press pause, to fast forward, that there are skills that you can learn to if you take a step back from it and think about it as watching it on a TV screen. You have some power in that. And that's not an easy thing to do. Those are skills that you can learn with the support of a therapist, or by reading some books on kind of positive thinking or cognitive behavioral therapy techniques. So it's not an easy thing, but it is interrupting that script is an important thing. And also, I would say to take a look at some of the work of self-compassion by Dr. Kristen Neff, who writes a lot about those kind of internal scripts and how we relate to them, and how we can maybe befriend ourselves in that and maybe be a little easier on yourself. We all make mistakes.
If you don't mind my just adding on to that, which I wholeheartedly agree with, sometimes for some of my clients, setting aside a time to worry, it's not really the same as the what ifs, but the ruminating about things can be helpful. Even to say, I'm going to take 5 minutes every day and I'm going to just worry. We'd encourage you not to engage in that kind of self-recrimination, but to just think what's on your mind that's troubling you. What are you ruminating about? Can you do some active problem solving around that? And at the end of that 5 minutes, you could even set an egg timer to say, my worry time is over for today. I can ruminate again tomorrow. But now how can I ground myself in the day and move forward with other things? Another kind of thing is just a visualization of what if you took that rumination or that, the should haves, and instead of having it right here all the time, could you just imagine kind of putting it in your lap? It's still there, but could you visually imagine taking those worries and just setting them in your lap so you don't have it right here? And again, you can move on with other things in your day that might give you pleasure, that might give you satisfaction. So just a couple things to add on.
Thank you for reminding me, Sharon, about those visualization exercises. I like the idea of thinking of a classic visualization exercise as leaves on a stream. So if you can imagine kind of leaves flowing down a stream, and you can put that worry or that fear or that self-recrimination on a leaf and just watch it flow down the stream. So kind of really, and really kind of taking it off your plate, giving yourself some time, recognizing that it's there and letting it float away. The other one that I've done with people is thinking about putting it in a hot air balloon, right? You put it in the balloon, you watch the balloon go off and it's gone. Maybe it'll come back tomorrow. Maybe you do this exercise again, but really knowing that you can kind of have techniques, especially visualizations, that can help you relate, give yourself some distance between yourself and that thought.
Yeah. And if your expectation of yourself is that you're going to be perfect and not make mistakes, then you're bound to be caught in that cycle of self-blame or should haves, would haves, whatever it is, woulda, coulda, shoulda. So can you also try to adapt consciously part of that self-compassion that Lisa mentioned, a more generous view to yourself? Just as you said, Lisa, what would you say to a friend about this? Can you lower your expectations to a place where you might possibly meet them? It's something that can be helpful. Oh, good. I see more questions popping up. So the next question is, do you have support groups for families dealing with a family member with depression?
When I run into people who ask this question, I tend to point them towards the support groups that NAMI offers. So NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. They have chapters in most major cities. So the Chicago chapter runs family and friend support groups. There may also be family and friend support groups for DBSA, which is the Depression and Bipolar Support Alliance. You would want to check those websites to see the exact dates, but I know for sure that NAMI has a long-running family and friends support group.
Wonderful suggestions. And the one, it doesn't quite fit, but our linkages support group is for older adults who have an adult child with a disability, very broadly defined. Mm-hmm. So an adult child who had an intellectual disability, a substance use concern, or a serious mental illness. So I would say if it's sort of an episodic depression with an adult child, you might feel like this doesn't really fit for me. But if you had an adult child who had chronic depression to the point that it was disabling, you could certainly see if linkages would feel like a good fit for you.
Absolutely.
And then there's another question. How can I support my parents to participate? How can I encourage my parents to participate in mental health support? Great question.
That's a hard one. We come up across this often, that sometimes the people that we think could really benefit from those kinds of support don't necessarily want to engage in it. So I don't know, Sharon, what are tips that you have?
Yeah, that is a tough one. I think people participate, therapy is voluntary. Yeah. So at the end of the day, people have to want it. But I think that the more you can help people destigmatize it and to say, like, this is something that people do. I'll tell you, my daughter went and got some mental health treatment when she was in high school, and they taught her a lot of skills for self-care and some other things. And she said, this should be part of the school curriculum. Everybody needs these skills. Everybody needs to know. Everybody goes through times in life when they're having anxiety or they're having depression or they're struggling. And why wouldn't we all want to take advantage of a coach or a therapist can kind of help us think it through, teach us some skills to cope with difficult times in our life, to be a partner to us in figuring out a way forward that's healthy for us. So I think that kind of conversation, to destigmatize it, to normalize it, to say, this is covered by your insurance in most cases, or we'll confirm that before you begin. And why not try it? What have you got to lose? The other thing that can be helpful, I think, with parents is to let them know that this is something that you would mean a lot to you. So I'm a little bit saying maybe play the guilt card of like, could you do this for me? I care so much about you. And I think this could be helpful. Or if you've had an experience with mental health services that was helpful and you wanted to share that, that might be a way to encourage somebody. And I'm going to stop talking because I see more questions are popping up. Let's see. Is there a book we can refer to with realization exercises? I think they mean visualization exercises.
I always encourage people to, if you have a smartphone and you're comfortable with it, there are lots of mindfulness apps or apps where you can have like a guided visualization exercise. If you're more comfortable with just Googling on the computer, there's a lot of different resources. You can just type in visualization exercises into YouTube and find something that really fits. There are a lot of reputable sources. I'm trying to think of where I normally get them for clients. I bet that the Mayo Clinic may have some links online. Sometimes I use UCLA has a mindfulness institute that I think you can use their website to find some good guided visualizations. The app that I would recommend if you have a smartphone and are comfortable with it is called Insight Timer. And that offers, I think there's paid stuff, but stick with the free stuff. It's good enough. So there should be free visualizations available on those kinds of apps.
Great ideas. And Arlene, I see you raised a hand, but in this webinar format, we can't call on you, unfortunately. So if you would type your question in the Q&A, we'd so appreciate it. And Brenda asked, do we have support groups for a loved one that doesn't want to be around family or friends, like children and siblings? How can I encourage my mom to participate in support to allow her to be around others? I'm sorry for that situation. That's so painful and difficult. I don't know of a specific support group for people who are estranged from family or have cut off from family. I think you might want to reach out for support and encourage individual counseling for your mom, because I don't think there's a specific support group in that. Can you think of anything, Lisa?
No, but I would say that like support for you in dealing with someone else's difficult boundaries or boundaries that you have trouble accepting, having a place. I was also thinking of this, Sharon, is thinking about therapy as having a place where you just get to say whatever's on your mind in a judgment-free space. Pitching that to somebody else or thinking about it as that way for yourself to destigmatize it as a place where you get to say what's on your mind and you don't have to worry about anything else.
And you could, if your mom is open to it, ask if she'd be interested in family therapy to work on those issues. She may or may not be open to that, but if she is, then that can be a way to try to air those issues. And we do offer family therapy at CJE and can refer you as well. Do you know of resources that are available either online or in person for individuals who are deaf, seeking therapy, support groups, etc.? Any that have deaf staff who can provide these services in ASL or that have interpreting options openly available? Excellent question. I think because that's a longer answer and one that I don't have the resources for right off the top of my head, I would suggest calling our intake department at 773-508-1000. And we would be happy to help you identify those resources. I know of a couple programs, mental health programs for people who are deaf, neither of which are around anymore, sadly. But we'd be happy to help you identify services that are available and make those connections. Oh, let me see if that covered it or if something new just popped up. Yep, there's new ones. We have a couple more questions? We have several more questions that have come in. Lisa, do you want to go a little longer and we'll try to answer these questions and let folks know if they need to go that they can?
Yeah, if you need to go, our time is up at noon. We'll stay and answer some of these questions, but if you want to log off now, please make sure to fill out the survey that will come up when you hit leave on the meeting.
Thank you so much for being here, Lisa. Thank you.
Thanks.
And we'll continue for a few more minutes, but we could also try to answer some of these questions in a follow-up email. Somebody shared their own memoir called Musings of an Improvised Life, which
I
is
love
a
that title.
beautiful title. What can you do if you think your parent is hiding a health issue and notice that she is forgetting and having difficulty remembering and constantly repeating herself without creating a problem or making her feel that she's not in control of her life? I mean, that's so difficult, but I think with love to say, Mom, I've noticed some changes in your health and in your memory. And I think it would be really good to talk to your doctor about it. And then there's something called a geriatric assessment that your mom's primary care, sorry, you said a parent, your mom or dad could be referred by their primary care physician for a geriatric assessment, usually through a hospital system that's covered by insurance, to better understand what's going on. And even to say to your parent, sometimes there's something reversible that can be happening, not always, but sometimes. And so let's get some blood work. Let's see what, because I'm noticing a difference even if you're not. And so without stigma or shame, to just say, I'm noticing a little bit of a change and I care so much. Can we go together to the doctor to figure this out? Do you want to add anything to that, Lisa?
No, I think that's great advice. These are difficult situations and also things you can talk about in conjunction with your parent's doctor. And these are also situations where engaging with a family therapist can be helpful. I think I emphasize the individual therapy services that we offer, but we also offer family therapy. And so that may be a way to get together and talk with an outside professional who can help navigate that kind of conversation. And the other thing I would say is to perhaps engage the support of the Alzheimer's Association. They don't just provide support for people who have a diagnosis of Alzheimer's, but they have a 24/7 helpline. The number's on their website, and you can call and talk to their counselors who provide support and advice, and they can maybe give you some more tips and pointers on how to start this conversation.
And Alice asked how to deal with the person who says, I don't have a problem. We kind of covered that in the earlier questions of like, how do you lead somebody to therapy or evaluation? It's difficult. I think, in addition to what we said already, I think to say, it seems like maybe we have a problem together because I love you and we're having trouble getting along, or I'm seeing a change in you. If there's a way to frame it as not an individual problem, but like, can we improve our relationship? That would mean so much to me, like Lisa said about family therapy. Or I'm seeing something maybe you're not seeing. And this doesn't mean there's something wrong with you, but is this a time where maybe you would at least consider getting some support and talking to somebody? Or even like the Pearls model, where to say, it seems like you're not enjoying things as much as you were, and maybe just some help with this very concrete model. Anything you want to add to that one, Lisa?
That question asker added an update. It's more like somebody who hides, like a spouse who doesn't have a problem and gets defensive. And I would say that that's a really difficult situation. And in that kind of situation, I might want to engage support myself on how to set loving boundaries, on how to cope with that, to get some more support for you. Oftentimes I say it's kind of a pithy saying, but sometimes we're in therapy for the people in our lives who won't go to therapy, and that's an okay use of it too, is to help navigate difficulties in relationships. We can't always fix it, but we can learn how to cope ourselves to help with dealing with situations that are just difficult like this. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, and I think Alice clarified a little bit further about getting defensive, which you addressed. I think it's also important to use I statements, or to say like, sometimes when you're irritable, I feel really hurt and I want things to be better between us, or whatever it is that's going on. So it's not like you always do this, you never do that. And then they feel like they have to protect themselves and get defensive. So can you bring it up in a way with love that you really want things to be better and care about them, in a way to try to not provoke their getting defensive? But it's very difficult, as Lisa said.
I think the last thing is just that somebody was asking about Insight Timer, and clarification. And yes, it is an app that you can download on your phone for free. It's not the only one, but I find it has a really big library of all kinds of things, and you can search by keywords to find all kinds of different mindfulness, meditation, and visualization exercises.
And Insight Timer also has a website. If you don't have a smartphone or don't like apps, yes, I love that about it, that it works both ways, but most people use it through the app, I think.
Wonderful.
It's just insighttimer.com.
So I think that's it.
So appreciate your being with us. And Lisa, thank you. And thank you to all of you who came today to listen to this wonderful talk on resilience. Be well.
Take
We'll see you
care,
again.
everyone. Bye-bye.